It is a good morning. Today I'm just tape reading because we are a Monday. And as you know, on Monday, when there is no news, especially when there's higher impact news later in the week, I often see little movement. What I want to see for this morning, what I'd like to see is on the regular trading hours gap, we opened higher. I want to see if we're willing to come down to fill in this gap, which would go from here all the way to up here because this area had no trading. If we can come down and fill in this gap, then I can see, okay, if maybe we're willing to turn and run higher. And there's also the trend that we've been seeing. We've trended during Asia, we consolidated during London, and now on the morning session we're trending higher, and we seem to be just reversing to clean up some of the people that were buying this trend overnight. So I'd like to see price come down to these London lows here. Just gonna, this orange area is that regular trading hours gap, but I'm gonna remove it. Or actually I can maybe just make it much lighter. There you go. And then there's also this big gap down here. I want to see if price is willing to come into this and fill this. So that's what I'll be looking at this morning. But I do like how we're moving away here. See how we've traded up into this previous candle, but we're quickly moving away, closing beneath. I want to see that and potentially leave this gap area, leave this inefficiency here open for later use. We can maybe continue to run quickly down beneath these lows into this fair value gap before targeting this area later. Check this out. I'll show you some selling pressure. Talk about selling pressure. We're beneath these lows now. Let's see if some buyers want to just wake up and start buying, because apparently that's how the markets move, completely random. I'd also be splitting this gap into 4 levels: 25%, 50%, and 100%, to study how the buying and selling pressure, the randomness that occurs at these levels. Let's be serious. But we're seeing 75% act as strong resistance, or sorry, support, because we're in this open fair value gap here. We don't have to come in all the way and fill it. Same thing with this regular trading hours gap, but we are already kind of digging into it, which could be enough if it wants to quickly run higher. It would just be more bullish if it doesn't fill it completely. It means it quickly wants to run the other direction. But looking at how this 15-minute candle is going to close, I think we can still see some lower prices potentially. Now I'd look at the low end actually of this whole range. If we are showing potentially willingness to go down there, but we'll see what happens. By the way, this is the midnight open, the dashed purple line, which I should be making it pink. So we are now taking a 15-minute level of sell side beneath the midnight open. This is a point in which I would be willing to start looking for a trade if we're showing willingness to go higher. But so far there's nothing that's telling me that we're reversing immediately so far. I wouldn't trust just buying blindly here at the break of this low. So I need to see a little bit of maybe consolidation and then fake a willingness to continue trading lower before trying to go higher. Yeah, this is looking like it could be a little bit more bearish than maybe I initially thought. Could be seeing a bigger run into this wick down here, so into this area. I'm not gonna try and look for that because we're already beneath the midnight open, so it might not work. But I'm just saying that looking at the 4-hour chart, the fact that we were all the way up here and just in 1 hour we made it all the way down here so fast, it is a little bit alarming. I wouldn't expect immediate higher prices, so I wouldn't really be wanting to be buying yet. Maybe I could wait a little bit, like until another hour, until 11, 12 maybe, and then see a reversal. But then it would also depend on how price is playing out. Because remember, Thursday's price action was it was staggering higher. So this looked like this whole range here looked like we were building in shorts. If smart money, the big pockets could be building in shorts, right? Every sell off, and then the counterparty goes back and buys it. They build in more shorts, and then they send it higher on Friday, get everybody in the calls. They dump it at the end of the day. Now we've come back into this wick. We could be starting a bigger delivery lower, but we'll see how we're playing out. So far, right now, I mean, the 15-minute chart, what it's telling me is it's willing to, at least the bodies are willing to stay out of this fair value gap. The wicks have completely come in and filled it like I wanted to see, and the bodies are staying right above it. And so to me, that's still bullish. That is a bullish sign. Right, we sold off a lot, but now I'd expect to just maybe go sideways a little bit. So I wouldn't really have a bias anymore of a strong direction of whether we're going to go up or down. What I would be interested in seeing is if we're going to resume this initial dump lower, and then how we're going to close on the hourly chart and the 4-hour chart, because this 4-hour chart is going to close in 9 minutes, right? But yeah, if it's going to close a little bit higher, closer to its open, this is obviously going to represent a chop. But if it's going to want to close beneath here, there is a small fair value gap there. If it's going to close beneath that, I would be bearish, and I wouldn't really be looking for a new the next candle to make a high. Anyways, let's look at what the other markets are doing. Let me just look at the S&P. Like S&P has relative equal highs. We could come back later and hit those, maybe even soon if we want to reverse around here. So I would mark those because that area is going to be seen as very strong resistance. So a lot of people are going to sell when price comes back this area to short price. It could then stop those people out and then only then go lower, which would get more people long after stopping the people who shorted it. Just create more liquidity. And the Dow, as you see, the Nasdaq has went lower, the S&P a bit lower, and the Dow has went higher. Now, the Dow is very, very bullish. I like to see the Nasdaq leading. So if the Nasdaq is the one that's showing bearishness, it's likely that the market wants to go lower. Notice how on the Dow we have this open fair value gap here, which is also a balanced price range with this area. And the Nasdaq doesn't have any of that. And Nasdaq, everything is closed up in here, so it doesn't really have a need of going much higher. but this indice very closely related. Not this morning though. Dow could just be reaching up a little bit more. The dollar kind of worries me because I got up this morning and I saw it start to go lower. It worries me for lower prices today. That's why I kind of want to see price if it's willing to reverse this morning, maybe this hour. But the volume balance here, we came back, traded into that, but we did it immediately. So I know on the hourly chart, this looks pretty bearish, right? The direction has obviously been descended lower. It is lower, and so there's going to be bullish pressure, right? I think risk on other assets. Euro dollar running up to the highs up here. GBP still has some way to go, so I can still see more downside to the dollar. The bond market is interesting though. Seems like the bond market's more bearish. So we'll see where that puts us with the indices. What is this showing you here? We had initial run higher. We got resisted by the midnight open. This could have gotten potentially some people long, right? Some people into buying it. Now we're coming back down to stop those people out. That could be a catalyst to a reversal, or it could just continue to accelerate lower here as we've already shot it down so much. But I'm watching that 5-minute swing low to see how we're going to react once we trade to it. Alright, so we've pushed up a little bit back into this big gap. Now we're failing to make that lower low before retracing here. I want to see then if other indexes were willing. Well, obviously not, because the Dow shot up a lot more. So now I'm more interested in this 10 o'clock hour to see, okay, is price going to align itself with what the other indices are doing? Are they going to start moving together? And if yes, where is it going to go? Right now, we've done everything we need to do lower. Okay, so we could be heading higher. I mentioned how the S&P has relative equal highs it could target. So I see the S&P return to this fair value gap. But so far there is nothing that I would want to trust as it's going to be the low. It could come back, make a new low, and then return higher, target these areas up here. Nothing is stopping it from doing that. So nothing I want to trust so far. And the Dow just looks horrible. An ugly child. It's the type of child you want to let go and just let it run free. No, I'm kidding. All right. So honestly, I don't see much else interesting. It is interesting how we failed to make a high above these relative equal highs there, but we did make a high above this. Obviously Nasdaq seems to be a bit more bullish now. Seems to be pushing up a little bit more. We're back inside 50% of this. In my opinion, well, this is a dealing range. The high over here is the high of the day, and the low over here took out a whole lot of liquidity, the level I was looking for. So right now, honestly, I would expect to either consolidate around 50% of this, or if we get above this range, I'd want to see a breakout and for price to run up higher, which I don't think would happen. So I'm more favoring 50% or lower. Nothing I would want to really stick around for. So I'm going to head out. I guess there is some excitement I could show. I was doing a program while I was watching this price action, and it's like I love pizza, right? So it's like ordering pizza, and then it's gonna ask me what crust I want, what size I want. If I put in the wrong thing, it'll tell me please try again, and then it's gonna ask the same question and tell me the options. And then I can do like bam, it'll tell me the price, the total at the end. I need to add all the toppings and stuff, and I'll have to do a bunch of stuff with the price, which will be annoying. But yeah, if I type in if I run it again, I should add would you like to order another pizza. But that's days like this when price is not moving and it's not really doing anything interesting that I want to partake on, I just distract myself by doing stuff like that. So that's why often I'm quiet when there's nothing really going on. Hey, so I'm just back. I wanted to add a note. So after I cut the stream, I stayed on for a little bit longer. I didn't take any trades or anything. I cut it at around 10:20. So around here, I said that it would likely gravitate around 50%. And we started moving a little bit, so I stayed on a little bit more. But basically, I was contemplating or playing with the idea whether we would see this continue and if it would see a new low directly or immediately, which was unlikely. But when I know that it's likely for it not to do anything, this is often why in the past I would completely remove myself from the charts. Today, like, I actually studied them and watched them, even though I had a good idea it was not going to do anything. Just move sideways, like I said, right? But in the past, if it were to show me a fast move, if you go on the 1 minute chart and you go at around when I stopped the stream or the recording, right? I stayed on for a little bit more and I saw this fast move up into this fair value gap, and it rejected and created another big fair value gap. So I'm like, okay, it's starting to move a little bit. And if I were, maybe 6 months ago, I would have probably tried to look for something to take a trade on. Right? Maybe we traded back into a discount into this gap or this one up there. And we're inversing this bigger 5 minute fair value gap, and we've hit the mid-eye open. Maybe I'd look for longs to inverse it. or I would look for shorts off of this, right? But I knew that it was two-sided and that we were likely just going to gravitate around that 50% level. And so I didn't feel the need to react when I saw this accelerating price action, right? Like at first I was a little bit surprised when I saw this movement all of a sudden just come out of nowhere, just go run up really quick and then very quickly displace lower. 6 months ago, it would have probably caught me off guard and I would have probably tried to look for trades, even though I would have said, hey, we're not really going to do anything, we're consolidating. That's why before I would completely remove myself. So I'm just kind of glad that I was able to stay out today and follow my bias, follow what my analysis was. I think it's very important that before you start trading, you should always have an analysis, a plan in mind where, okay, I'm going to do this if I see that, and then you execute on those ideas. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it's not there and something else is going on, there's just no trade. If it doesn't work, I have the recording and I have what I wanted to do, what I was seeing at the time, to understand why I was seeing it wrong, and I can go back and fix it so next time I don't do the same mistake. I think that's very, very valuable. And yeah, that's all I wanted to point out. And of course, in the afternoon, we again made a new low. What was interesting though is also the S&P 500 was a lot more to the downside. Right, we had initially rejected off that gap, and then it wasn't going as high up as the Nasdaq was. So this was showing me that, okay, potentially we're a lot more bearish on the S&P. So around the afternoon, you can see how much lower it went, completely filling in this gap, trading near these lows, right? So, and the Dow also around 1020 started to go and run lower, right? But the Nasdaq was not in agreement. The Nasdaq had already shot down very far down and then came back up to consolidate. And it looks like it's the S&P 500 and the Dow that pulled the Nasdaq lower as the S&P 500 and the Dow were going lower. That's the only reason why the Nasdaq had these fast moves down, these small sell-offs. But anyways, that was all that I wanted to say.